Hey guys, it's Girl Got Game. Welcome back to EDO Blossoms, and we are going to do the last boy on our first page here, which is our favorite mad scientist and random burster outer into poetry guy, Keisuke Sanan. So let's begin, shall we? Proceed. I am so excited. I should probably start this with a content warning of this route will contain much squealing and giggling. So I do love my Colonel boy so much. He's great. I'm hoping we get more random poetry. It's going to be really interesting doing this from his point of view, because he is the least bothered about the whole Fury situation. Like, he is bothered, but not as much. And he keeps trying to improve stuff, so I'm curious if we'll help him with experiments this time around. Plus, I think he was the first guy in the last game that we actually ran into our dad at the end and realized, oh, Dad's totally evil now. So, yeah, should be pretty interesting. Let's recap. Winter 1864. In order to find my father, with whom I'd lost contact, I, Chizuru Yukimura, visited Kyoto. In that city, I bore witness to a horrifying secret hidden within a group called the Shinsengumi, the Fury, a creature with white hair and crimson eyes. Luckily, I was saved from the vicious clutches of the Furies by the members of the Shinsengumi. Because I had discovered the Shinsengumi secrets, it was proposed that I live with the Shinsengumi men since they were also searching for my father. I was given the position as the commander's page, and thus my life with the Shinsengumi began. I had heard rumors, well, whispers really, that the Shinsengumi were little more than a bunch of crooked ronin, but my life with them proved otherwise. Their commitment to protect the safety of Kyoto made them the last of a dying breed, true samurai. Among the Shinsengumi's ranks was Keisuke Sanan, their cunning, pensive colonel, who was entrusted to counsel Chief Kondo and Commander Hijikata. He was a talented swordsman and possessed an eye for strategy, that is, until an ill-fated injury left him unable to wield his katana and he became a recluse. He retreated from the public eye, a point of concern exacerbated by the sudden arrival of Kashitaro Ito, the Shinsengumi's newly appointed deputy commander. Oh yeah, that crazy eye face. Where he was like, "Is this beauty?" and then stabbed himself. In an act of desperation to cure his afflicted arm, Sanan consumed the water of life, transforming into a fury to reside in the Shinsengumi's shadow. All of a sudden, their well-kept secret was becoming harder to keep, as battles were waged against vicious demons and experiments became far more commonplace. There was no stopping the tide of change, however. The fate of the shogunate was threatened by the Satsuma Choshu, which later culminated in an inevitable battle for control of the nation. Sanan was learning to hone his skills as a fury to shatter the illusion that he was little more than a monster, and defend against the impending war. The initial fervor I'd seen in Sanan's eyes when I had first arrived in Kyoto, all those years ago, was restored when he had dedicated himself to a strict training regiment. Yeah, one of my favorite pictures from the last game. Ugh, so good. However, when a nefarious plot involving Furies came to light at the hands of my father and brother, Kaoru Nagamo, it was Sanan who rescued me. Unfortunately, the battle ended in favor of the Satsuma Choshu, and the Shinsengumi were driven from Kyoto. They set sail for Edo in hope of a new start. Okay. Another thing I've remembered about Sanan is he's big on the trust. Like, major. Like, do you trust me? So, yeah. Gotta trust this boy. Unless that's changed, because sometimes things change in Edo Blossoms from Kyoto Winds, and then it might be like, we should maybe call him out on this a little bit. But who knows? I'm hoping that we can just still trust him. Because he was doing a lot of investigating. That's why he was skulking around at night and stuff. Covered in blood. Alright. Let's begin. My, what big teeth you have! Aha! An interesting achievement to start Sanon's route. The Shinsengumi sailed to Edo in forlorn spirits after having been thoroughly crushed during the Battle of Toba-Fushimi along with the shogunate army. Apparently there's terminology to read. Oh, the second one for shogunate army. The term referring to the loyalists who still choose to fight for the shogunate following its terrible defeat at the Battle of Toba-Fushimi. Remaining members were often arrested and executed by imperial troops for conspiracy and treason. Chief Isumi Kondo, alongside the rest of our injured soldiers, were being expertly and diligently treated by Dr. Matsumoto at a clinic in Yokohama. Another notable absence in the Shinsengumi was Okita's, whose respiratory condition had worsened enough to require his relocation to Sendagaya. All the while, the Shinsengumi temporarily regrouped their base of operations in Shinagawa at the Kama Inn, fighting the urge to dwell on their sore losses. With the chief in serious treatment, our commander had been traveling tirelessly to Edo Castle to garner support with the Bakushin for a retaliatory strike. Having neither Kondo nor Hijikata at our headquarters was noticeably irritating many of the men who had not much else to do, and morale continued to suffer. What will become of us? How much more of fate's cruel command can the Shinsengumi cope with? These sentiments were gathering steam for everyone in the Shinsengumi, and on one such brisk evening... Alright. You're telling me you want to do rounds in Edo?
Yes, I intend to conduct business as usual.
Hijikata had returned back to Kama Inn and was welcomed immediately with a request from Sanon.
Ever since our tenure in Kyoto, the Shinsengumi has prided itself on maintaining the safety of our citizens. I see no reason to abandon this practice in Edo.
Look, I get where you're coming from, but now's not the time for it. We don't exactly have soldiers to spare at the moment.
I disagree. Now is more of a time than ever. As of late, lethargy has run rampant in our halls, deterring progress. It is pathetic. I've noticed that Nagakura and the others are often out drinking, too. Our defeat of the Fushimi magistrate has festered into a plague of bitter apathy.
What? So you think asking them to patrol the streets will curb this apparent lack of motivation?
Well, for starters, it would do well to improve our reputation in Edo. The Fury Corps can patrol at night.
Guess that's better than sitting on our asses, isn't it? Alright, you win. I'll begin organizing a schedule for the troop. Sanon, you handle the Fury Corps.
Hijikata conceded, albeit reluctantly, giving himself a beat of pause before approving Sanon's suggestion. I, on the other hand, had been gathering empty teacups on the table, listening to their discussion quietly before clearing my throat to address Sanon. Do you really think that's a good idea?
How do you mean?
I understand that performing rounds and guarding the city is pertinent, but... Sanon had been severely working himself to the bone. Unlike other Furies, he chose not to sleep during daylight hours. Instead, he had been heavily invested in researching the water of life to find a breakthrough. You're straining yourself. If you add nighttime rounds to your list of duties, then you can't rest.
I beg to differ. Adding to one's list of responsibilities is the mark of a productive mind. Besides, rest is for the dead, and it is not as though we are in short supply of the latter.
You are... right. Aww. No, don't start this off with reminding me of these two. Ugh. In a way, in an effort to protect me, sacrificed his own life in the Battle of Toba-Fushimi and was slaughtered. So too was Yamazaki, who attempted to consume the water of life to preserve his last moments of life. That's right, I forgot on the boat that he decided at the very last second to take the water of life, but it was too late. Oh, man. That's right. Two of our most cherished allies were needlessly killed in Kyoto, and my chest tightened thinking about it. Sanon adopted a hushed tone, murmuring softly as his eyes dropped to the ground.
If only the water of life could have saved them, then we wouldn't have to grieve as we are. This is why my research mustn't stop. I feel no temptation to consume it. Ideally, it should serve as an asset in time of dire need.
Neither choice seemed to carry any sense of allure. The first was to endure death painfully as a human would, or to live on as a fury, relegating oneself to little more than a ghost in the Shinsengumi shadows. Even so, living on was admittedly generous in its description, and death is less of an option than it is an unavoidable sentence. Sanan twiddled his fingers in silent contemplation, so I attempted to offer some levity. You know, come to think of it, I can think of something that might be able to aid your research.
Really? How so?
Since we're in Edo now, I could lead you to the house where I grew up. Father might have left some documents pertaining to his own research on the water of life, so it might be worth a shot to snoop around. And he just walked out the door and was like, what are we waiting for? Alright. Sanan and I set off by sundown of the next day. We did wait some time. It had been nearly 4 years since I last set foot inside of it, my time having been occupied in Kyoto. Yukimura Clinic was in deterioration from a period of neglect, triggering a queasy sense of guilt inside of me as Sanan and I observed the house's exterior.
Ah, how quaint. So this is where you used to live, eh, Yukimura? Pardon my lack of manners. When visiting a lady's home, one should come bearing gifts.
Oh, you. Sanan chuckled awkwardly at his own joke, and I smiled nervously as I slid the front door open. Ahem. Upon entry, the scent of my home hit me with nostalgia. That's funny. A thick coat of dust covered every surface in sight. The front yard was overgrown with tall weeds poking through the cracked stone walkway. I examined my home like a piece of amber, wondering what kind of secrets had been trapped and lost in time within its limited confines. One after the other, I pulled open dusty drawers. No page went unturned as Sanan and I rifled through notebooks and stacks of wrinkled parchment. It was an excavation of my childhood. Although no immediate sign of clues reared its head, I was attempting to parse something deeper in this hollow, abandoned house. My memories. I see countless books on Western medicine, but there doesn't seem to be anything here that's connected to his Fury research.
Apparently so. What we must search for is a hiding place, one you'd never think to search.
Hello. As Sanan paced around the room, he put deliberate pressure on the tatami mat with the balls of his feet, shifting his weight while staring curiously at the floor. After repeating this process a couple more times, he tilted his head, quickly ducking to the ground and placing his hand upon the spot. Nice detective work.
Found it. It's here.
What are you doing?
While searching, I noticed this part of the flooring creaked differently to the rest of the house. Should my hypothesis prove incorrect, then I shall fix the damage, but my instincts rarely fail me.
Sanan lifted the mat and began pulling at the floorboard to reveal a hollow space underneath. He smirked wryly, and from the hole he started to grab conspicuously hidden stacks of documents. Whoa, I never thought he'd hide them here. This whole time, these were sitting under my nose.
Fret not, as I was unsure if this method would work. Remind me to thank Okita for the inspiration.
Soji?
He used to explain in great detail how he discovered the secret location of Hijikata's haiku collection.
That's my boy! Refers to Hakuoki haiku collection, comprised of poems written by Hijikata. Wait a second. Hijikata kept his haikus hidden under the floorboards and Okita found them? Imagining Okita beaming with pride after having found Hijikata's haikus softened the tension of Sanan uncovering the artifacts of father secrecy. I grabbed a stack and began flipping through them, holding my breath as I sunk myself into their contents. Well done, Soji.
Astounding. The Water of Life's composition is partly comprised of demon blood from Western Europe. However, the proportions are unclear to me. From what I gather, the Water of Life in its current iteration is heavily diluted. We must put forth all available resources into cultivating a stronger version of the Water of Life. For exactly how long Kodo has been researching the Water of Life, I cannot say, but by the time it fell into the Shinsengumi's hands, Kodo had demonstrated an intimate familiarity with it. Conveniently, he refrained from sharing with us any information of its effects or ways to counteract it. Everything is coming together. I am beginning to see why he branded our furies as experiments.
The more documents Sanan and I read through, the more troubled our expressions became. It was almost midnight when Sanan and I had sifted through the majority of Father's notes. Look here. In this document it mentions something about a medicine that can counteract bloodlust.
Right. Keep in mind, however, that its usefulness is limited. It can only soothe, not cure the symptoms. If by chance we are able to invest some time into thoroughly researching the ingredients, then
we could rid Furies of bloodlust, or we can revert the serum's effects. I mean, the bloodlust is not at the top of Sanan's list of priorities, to put it mildly. I would say we should go for reverting the serum's effects. Because all he wanted was to get his arm back. And that was it. It wasn't like he was dying or anything. So yeah, if you could, like, you know, still live and I think at the end of his route there was something about him wanting to, like, get back to being human. I think that's what he talked to our dad about. I can't remember for sure. I'm gonna go with revert the serum's effects, though. Do you believe there's a possibility that eventually we can revert Furies back to their human form?
Suppressing side effects that inhibit the sanity of Furies would render them no different to humans. Perhaps this is what Kodo suggested when he noted something about possessing an antidote.
Emotions were conflicting in Sanan's tired eyes as he stared in dejection up towards the ceiling.
Back to their human form, eh?
Yeah, alright.
At the very least, for those who were coerced into drinking the serum, or hadn't quite considered the potential ramifications of doing so, this may prove to be a saving grace, should they grow exhausted by such a life.
There was a hint of hesitation in Sanan's voice as he spoke, which perhaps should have been my first sign. Uh-huh. First sign of what? Before I could ask him to clarify his feelings, Sanan curtly slammed the book shut. We're done here. A glistening ray of moonlight eked through the clouds amidst a backdrop of scattered stars. And we're back. Sanan and I shared little conversation as we made our return to Kama Inn, seeing as we had been too occupied reading through more stacks of documents. Our first method of verifying the document's truth was following the medicine's recipe as closely as possible. And it's done. I held the finished concoction in my hand nervously, wiping my sweaty forehead with the back of my other forearm. Well, I guess there's no way of knowing if it works or not without a test subject in front of us, but if someone happens to suffer about a bloodlust in the near future, hopefully it'll help in some way.
Indeed. For the time being, we should hold on to it. Judging from the fact that this recipe was stashed with the rest of his notes in your home, I am inclined to believe the contents were of small import to Kodo. As with the rest of his research, only he can validate its information. We must find a means to contact him.
I agree, but ever since Tobafushimi, I haven't had any communication with him, let alone seen him. To tell you the truth, I've got no idea where he is.
Well, I highly suspect him to make his return for you sometime soon.
Uh-oh. Music stops. Guy sweating. It's bloodlust time. I forgot to think about, like, what his potential kink might be. I think I'm gonna go on a limb and say Sanon's gonna be, like, traditional vampire. Like, facing from the front. Okay, come on, mouth. Facing from the front. Like, facing Chizuru's face and, like, biting her neck from the front. Not from the back, like Toshi and Shin did, where they're like, I don't want you looking at me. I don't think Sanon's gonna mind so much. That's my guess. We'll see. I can't imagine him really being an arm guy, but we'll see.
From now on, I want you to practice caution.
Sanon? What's the matter? Uh-oh.
No!
Oh no! Sanon began stuttering, clutching his chest in pain. His voice became scratchy and staggered. I watched in horror as the color of his eyes flickered. There could be no mistaking what I was witnessing. He was experiencing a bout of bloodlust! I should... Hold on a second, I should drink some water first. Alright, let's do it. My first inclination was to hand Sanon the medicine we had just produced, but... would offering him an untested batch of medicine really do him any good in his desperate state?
Go!
I could spare no more seconds of hesitation. My mind was frantic, reacting out of reflex. Hold on! I hastily unsheathed my kodachi, sliding the blade's honed edge against my wrist before timidly stretching the bloody limb out towards Sanon. Really? He's a wrist guy. I wouldn't have guessed. I gasped, watching Sanon's eyes widen at the sight of blood dripping viscously from the fresh cut. What is the meaning of this? We're always shocking this poor boy.
What is the meaning of this?
You mentioned that blood is the only true way to mitigate your bloodlust, right? Please, take my blood. Huh. Okay, I was wrong about him. He's a wrist guy. Have we had a wrist guy? Soji was like an actual hand. I forgot my list. Soji was hand, Toshi was back of the neck. Hajime... Was Hajime wrist? I can't remember Hajime's. Heisuke was an arm guy for sure. Dang. I forgot my own rule and don't have my list handy. Well, serves me right. I'll add you to the list, Sanon. Don't worry. Please don't scream while you're licking my wounds. He could tolerate his insatiable cravings no longer. Sanon's face warped in agony, and he suddenly lunged his face forward to lick my oozing wound. A dull pain pinched my arm where Sanon was licking. It didn't hurt, though. In fact, it was almost soothing. I felt my back tighten as Sanon's tongue sipped mouthfuls of blood as if he were afraid of wasting a single drop. Man, I feel so bad that I've forgotten all the other boys. I'll look it up after this. Well, that happened. Nearly a month had passed since our ship dropped its anchor in Edo's port. The Shinsengumi declared its intent to depart from Kama Inn, moving its headquarters to a mansion owned by the city's Hatamoto with its men in tow. The spiritual wounds sustained from the defeat in Tobafushimi lingered ominously, but thankfully we could take some joy in the progress of a new move. Luckily for us, our move coincided with the return of several of our injured warriors, whose recovery had cast a dark cloud over the fate of our organization. Our anticipation was hot for one individual in particular. Ayy.
My sincerest apologies for my extended absence, everyone. Much has changed since we last met.
Please, don't worry. All that matters to us is that you're safe, Kondo. How is your shoulder?
But of course. Well, wielding my sword is still something of a challenge for starters.
The chief of the Shinsengumi had returned. With him, a thundering bellow echoed throughout the halls of the new headquarters. Kondo gazed proudly among the hall, staring at each of the captains, including Heisuke and Sanan, who feigned smiles in response to Kondo.
My, how things have changed indeed. For a moment I thought I had stumbled into a foreign country or something.
I nodded with him politely, discreetly gazing out of my peripherals to the surprising sight beside us. Kondo had highlighted something peculiar. The opportunity for new horizons hadn't been limited to a mere change of scenery, as the Shinsengumi also forewent their usual attire. Unlike their traditional long-flowing kimonos, they were adorned in tight, well-tailored clothing that had recently caught wind in European fashion. Oh, come on, we're not gonna drool over Sanan and his outfit. Please, Chizuru, don't let me down.
Getting our asses kicked in Tobafushimi revealed we've got some catching up to do on the battlefield. So, fellas, from here on out we're stepping up the way we organize our ranks, starting with our uniforms and moving all the way up to our arsenal. Though the material is a tad tight, I have confidence that I will grow accustomed to it.
Oh, Bean. Hijikata, Saito, and the rest of the soldiers were stretching their limbs playfully, basking in the novelty of wearing unconventional clothing. Of all the gentlemen flexing in their new dapper attire, however, the one who stood out most was... Yeah! Give me the once over. That's my girl! That's my girl!
Why are you staring, Yukimura?
Oh! No reason! No reason at all!
How disappointing. I was beginning to think you were stupefied by my handsome appearance.
Hey! He knows it! Yes! Yes! Love it. It's not like that. Ahem.
Ah, I see. Perhaps I need to wipe my glasses, else I would believe my eyes were playing tricks.
No, I didn't mean anything by it. You look quite, dashing.
That's more like it.
Dang! He was fishing for that compliment and he got it. Sanan possessed conversational tact. In this instance, it felt like a ploy to coax something out of me. He just wants you to admit he looks hot. A groomed folded collar hung loosely around his slender neck. His outfit was sharp, accentuated by tastefully worn gloves underneath burgundy and gold jacket cuffs. Truly, a uniform to complement his intellect. Sir.
The times are changing, and our uniform should reflect that. Glad to see all of you are keen on it. Alright, gentlemen. Take note of this momentum. We're going to need it when we siege Kofu Castle.
Kondo went quiet, glancing around the room sternly. Under shogunate command, the Shinsengumi was ordered to mobilize and march to Kofu Castle in order to ambush the occupying Imperial Army forces. As a gesture of good faith, the shogunate rewarded the Shinsengumi with tantalizing riches and recruits. However, the true token of generosity to ensure the Shinsengumi's loyalty was in the designation of title, status, and I can never remember how to say this word. Nomenclature? To Kondo as a Hatamoto. I probably said that wrong. If the campaign to take Kofu Castle was successful, then the fortress and holdings were there for Kondo's taking, which naturally bolstered his spirits.
Hey, Kondo? About that. Do the Bakushin seriously expect us to march with a bunch of warriors who've got no experience? Agreed. I've got no qualms with going off to battle, but some of this just doesn't sit well with me.
A portion of the captains, led by Harada, voiced their palpable discontent, which, given the circumstances, had some bearing in logic.
Let's cut the bullshit. They've been dodging us for upwards of a month every time we ask for help. But now they're willing to throw us a bone because they need help? Nuh-uh. I don't buy that crap.
Well, orders are orders, aren't they? It's not like we have much of a choice either way, do we?
Right you are. Fortunately, the Fury Corps is ready to march at a moment's notice. Personally, I cannot wait to avenge our losses from Tobafushimi.
About that, Sanon. We've actually decided not to use the Fury Corps this time around. It's not just you, Sanon. Heisuke too. In fact, all of the Furies are staying in Edo. Oh, and Yukimura. You're staying too.
What? Oh, okay. So we're not going this time.
If I may object, all of us bore first-hand witness to the catastrophe suffered during the Battle of Tobafushimi. Lest we forget, the Shinsengumi were embarrassed handily by the opposition's advanced weaponry. Our reputation would be nothing were it not for the Fury Corps. What chance do you have without us?
Look, I'm not disputing any of that. But this time the Shogunate's gifted us rifles and cannons galore. Besides, the recruits we've gathered are fine men. They'll get the job done, and there's a ton of them. Whereas we can only hide the Fury Corps for so long. So, try to level with me here, Sanon.
Thus the truth is revealed. We are discarded as quickly as we are used.
Oh, wait, Sanon!
Okay, we can hash out details later on. For now, let's call it a day. Alright, men. Dismissed!
I hadn't even waited for Kondo to finish dismissing the troops before I sprinted after Sanon. My eyes scanned the vicinity, seeing if the two of us were alone, and I called out to a visibly shaken Sanon. Poor boy. Sanon...
Yukimura, what an absolute farce that was. Don't you agree? My only reason for becoming a Fury was for the Shinsengumi. My sword swings for them, alone. But when the opportunity arises, we are given no chance to heed the call. Useless as all hell. Even calling it a farce is an understatement. My honor is being stripped from me.
But surely there's some explanation for why they would want the Fury Corps to stay.
Not an inch closer.
Ah. As I extended my hand to rest upon Sanon's shoulder, he snapped at me coldly, flicking his hand.
Please. I wish for you not to see me like this.
A tumult plagued Sanon's restless heart. He had the will and talent to fight in battle. But against his control, he was caged in shadow. If a warrior couldn't prove his worth on the battlefield, then where? It was a humiliating blow. I searched within myself for a meaningful response. In the end, however, my mind was agape with nothing to say, and we endured a bitter silence. I realized it was best to leave him be. As I spun to make my way back to the Great Hall, something stopped me from sliding the door open. Huh? I heard two voices in heated discussion from the other side of the door, and I gently pressed my ear against it to get a read of their conversation. Oh, Chizuru the spy.
Heisuke, you've probably already heard about this, but Edo's been flush with rumors of some vicious murders. Dismembered bodies drained of blood. I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but the timing of the rumors line up with when Sanon started organizing his after-hours rounds.
You don't think maybe it's because our boy is investigating said murders? Toshi?
So, you think Sanon did it, Hijikata?
Never said that. But, if I let Sanon loose, I'm afraid people are going to start connecting the dots. I'm afraid they'll pin him as the suspect. Of course I trust him, but we can never be too sure. So, Heisuke, that's where you come in. I need you as my eyes and ears in Edo. Don't leave Sanan alone. If push comes to shove, well, I'll leave it to you.
Okay. Fingers crossed it doesn't come to that, man.
I couldn't stand to listen to another second. I cupped my hand over my mouth to keep from squealing, and I scurried away in panic. How could they? No, I refused to let myself entertain the notion. Even during our time in Kyoto, Sanan had been continuously misunderstood. Not for 1 second had I believed that Sanan would be capable of such horrid and detestable acts. I reassured myself as I ran down the hall, holding my hand over my face to keep from crying. Oh, Chizuru. My mind evoked the image of Sanan toppling over in agony from his bloodlust, and I wept. Aww. Chizuru, you're a good-un. Believing in your boy. We'll help him. We're gonna help him out this time around.